It's day 2 of the Republican Party's big retreat in Williamsburg, Virginia. A time for the party to unify, a time to bond, a time to come together and figure out their future. And I sure hope they're doing more than trust falls. A brand new NBC News poll just out shows 49% of Americans have a negative view of the Republican Party. That's the worst negative rating for the GOP since 2008. Only 26% have a positive view of Republicans. And 81% disapprove of the job Congress is doing, while just 14% approve. So who are the big headliners for change today? These guys. Oh, yeah. A real breath of fresh air. Speaker Boehner, Eric Cantor, and Paul Ryan. That's change you can believe in. And it was Mr. Ryan who was giving all kinds of advice today on how to battle President Obama. This is the GOP's fix-it guy?
70% of Americans want the American dream. They believe in the American idea. Only 30% want the welfare state.
We don't want to turn the safety net into a hammock that lulls able-bodied people to lives of dependency and complacency.
I've always adopted the position that the method of conception doesn't change the definition of life.
This is the guy to fix their tarnished brand. They're lost, and they're freaked out about their future. The Hill reports Republicans worried they'll lose the House to Democrats if they botch the fiscal talks. So have a great time in Williamsburg. Enjoy the bonding, but good luck when you get back to Washington. Maybe it's time for more than a little getaway. Joining me now is Maria Teresa Kumar, President and CEO of Voto Latino and an MSNBC contributor, and Angela Rye, political strategist and co-founder for Impact and the former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus. Thanks to you both for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me out.
Maria Teresa, what do you see coming out of this GOP retreat?
They're having a kumbaya moment. No, I think when you actually start looking at the headlines, right, there's the panels that they're having. One is how to communicate to minorities and women. And that if it was only a communications problem that they had, then they actually have a shot to achieve it. But unfortunately, you showed it there. They lack diversity. They also lack the shepherding that Colin Powell was trying to do, saying you actually need to change your ways. You need fundamental change. You can't do it in a 2-day retreat. You actually have to scratch your heads, have a come to Jesus moment and say, we actually have to create and actually diversify in order to bring individuals that can actually reflect the changing landscape of America. I don't think they want to do that. I don't think they're prepared to do that. I think that they're still under the impression that America was back in the 1950s. And what we saw was the American voter basically voted for President Obama overwhelmingly, basically saying that they're defying the changing face of America.
Now, Angela, Paul Ryan actually sounded like a voice of reason in the GOP today. He advised Republicans, and I'm quoting him, while we aspire to give the country a very specific and clear vision about what we think is the right way to go, the major big issues of the time, we have to do it at the same time, recognize the divided government moment that we have and the fiscal deadlines that are approaching, what those involve, and then how we're going to proceed forward. I mean, it almost sounds like when he says recognize the divided government moment, is he telling them to back away from the debt ceiling fight?
I don't know that he's telling them to back away, but I think he's certainly smart in observing the facts. We saw a really brutal fight for Speaker Boehner. We saw a failed Plan B on the Hill, and then you saw him scrambling to figure out how to get the votes to pass a fiscal cliff deal. So Paul Ryan recognizes the sign of the times, and I think he's pleading with the most far-right part of the party because it's certainly not going to work in this day and age.
But, Angela, you worked the Hill. You were executive director of a major caucus there, the Congressional Black Caucus. When they get back to D.C., the fringe of their party will still be there, and it's a problem. Political reports GOP leaders are authentically at a loss on how to control members who don't respond to the normal incentives of wanting to help party leaders or of avoiding situations like default. That could be public relations nightmares. Now, How do they deal with this? I mean, you've been in those rooms with Congress people. How do they deal with the fringe groups that are marching to the beat of a different drum?
Well, I think Paul Ryan also said today that they're at risk of, potentially losing the House. I think that they need to have a come to Jesus moment with the far right and say, listen, if we can't figure out a way to really reach compromise, that is the reason why we're elected. That is the reason why we're supposed to work with this president, regardless of our personal feelings or biases. We really have to come together and compromise. That is the only way forward.
Now, Maria, the fringe is also in big trouble because their brand has been damaged. The new NBC poll shows favorable ratings for the Tea Party movement are the worst ever recorded. 47% unfavorable, 23% favorable. So they may have some advantages in their home districts, Maria, but nationally they're as unpopular as they've ever been.
Right, and I guess that's sort of the problem with gerrymandering. Do they care that they're unpopular on the national level as long as they basically have a safe seat for the next 20 years? Talk about nobody having to be termed out. I think with the Republican leadership, I think Boehner, he tried to basically shake the Tea Party up and basically say, we're actually going to take you off all your chairmanships. What good did it do when he still had to negotiate and basically send pieces of the fiscal cliff legislation to the Senate in order to get anything done? I think what the real problem is for the Republican Party is that they are either a sunsetting party because even though they may have these gerrymandering districts, it's only going to last for so long because they're not going to infuse them with a new pipeline of individuals that are thoughtful, innovative, whether they're Black, Latino, women, or Asian. They're just not going to have that force. So in order for them not to be a dying party, they have to modernize.
Now, Angela, as we go toward these fights, the fiscal fights and other issues that come up, you've got the president very popular, and you've got them very unpopular. How does the president leverage that popularity and their unpopularity to move an agenda forward when they still have the power to block some things in the House?
I think we're seeing a new face of this president this term. You've already seen him step up in a major way with the debt ceiling fight. He's been very clear about what he expects for them going forward. He was very clear about his expectations for the fiscal cliff negotiations, and we've even seen him dealing with the Sandy Hook kind of crisis with signing executive actions. I think the president is going to lay down a hard line and will continue to do that, not only for the fights immediately before us, but also for things like immigration reform. And the Republican Party is just going to have to compromise.
Maria Teresa Kumar and Angela Rye, thank you both for your time tonight.
Thank you, Reverend.